Major production funding for Game Notes is provided by...
You have what it takes to begin your journey. Curiosity, ingenuity, intellect, determination. Through a vast portfolio of affordable and in-demand academic programs, hundreds of student-focused activities, and wraparound services, Southern University meets you where you are, giving you the tools and support that lead you to a successful career in the sciences or the arts. Begin with your goals anywhere. Finish stronger at Southern University at supr.edu.
Hargrove Engineers and Constructors is proud to support LPB since 1995. Hargrove has been employee-owned and relationship-driven. With 2,700 teammates around the world, Hargrove works as one team to go beyond expectations. With additional support from Lafayette Travel, the LSU Alumni Association, and the Cook Hotel and Conference Center at LSU, Louisiana Tech University, Natchitoches Regional Medical Center, Northwestern State University, Red Stick Sports, the U.S. Army Baton Rouge Recruiting Battalion, the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, and viewers like you. Thank you. And we're off and running. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Post Game Notes here on LPB. I'm Victor Howell. Great to have you with us as we now have week 2 in the books for college football. I'm flying solo with you this week. I'll take you through the next 60 minutes. We'll look at some very impressive wins for a few teams here in the state, and unfortunately, some very big losses for our state teams. Lots to cover. Plus, we'll be joined by George Faust out of Lafayette, KLFY affiliate there. He'll be talking to us about the Cajuns from Louisiana, and Aaron Dietrich from up at UL-Monroe. He'll spend some time with us as we talk about the Warhawks and the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs and the Tigers from Grambling. All of that is coming up here in the next 60 minutes. Let's talk about what's coming up with some of these games, though. We'll focus first on those Bulldogs from Louisiana Tech making their way down to Baton Rouge. It was the home opener for the Tigers from LSU, and it was not an easy one for the purple and gold. It was an interstate showdown, 1 hour apart between McNeese and Louisiana. This one was played at Our Lady of Lourdes Stadium. We'll show you if the Cajuns could crack the win column at home. And Tulane in a thriller on the road just outside of Mobile, going down to the very last minute. We'll talk about that game and more coming up here on Game Notes. But let's start with the big game in Baton Rouge. It was the home opener for LSU, now up to number 3 in the national rankings, coming off of that huge primetime win 1 week ago against Clemson. Of course, next week you've got the Florida Gators. So would this be a sandwich game with Louisiana Tech coming to town? The Bulldogs coming off of a shutout win at home 1 week ago against the Lions from Southeastern. They made the bus ride down to Baton Rouge on Friday, and it was a sold-out ball game Saturday night. Let's take you to Tiger Stadium. Great weather, great atmosphere for this ball game between these two state teams and two coaches who know each other very well. They hit the roads together recruiting. Sonny Cumbie working camps with Brian Kelly, so they know each other very, very well. This was bad news for LSU on the very first play. Braylon Moore, the reigning SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week at center, gets rolled on the very first play for the Tigers. He would wind up leaving the game. He would not come back, getting an MRI. We're not sure if he will play against Southeastern next week. Then later, Nussmeier up top. He's picked off. Michael Richard on the double doink. Watch this. Off of one deflection, off of a teammate, and bounces right into his lap. One more look, it deflects off of two players right into him, and the Tigers turn the ball over to the Bulldogs. Great defense for Louisiana Tech. Later in the quarter, Damian Ramos from 51 yards, and he pushes it right. It's no good. Sonny Cumbie likes what he sees from his team early on as the defense is playing tough for Louisiana Tech. 3rd and 6 now. LSU breaks away with a huge run. It's the longest run of the game, 48 yards for Xavier Thomas. Biggest play for Brian Kelly and his Tigers. Then 3rd and 6 for Nuss. All sorts of time. Waiting, looks into the back of the end zone. Nick Anderson for the score as the Tigers went 98 yards in 11 plays at 7-0. LSU. Mid-second quarter here. Nuss to Xavier Thomas again. It's broken up, but this is the second of 2 straight pass interference calls on Tech's defense. However, they keep the Tigers out of the end zone. They settle for a field goal. It's 10-0 LSU. 3rd quarter now. Tech's offense only has 15 yards in the quarter. LSU dominating the quarter, but they get the score. Cade Durham from 3 yards out. A little bit of breathing room for LSU. It's now 17-0. Early 4th quarter, More bad news for the Tigers. Watch number 14. That's Trey'Dez Green. And he goes down, gets rolled on, grabs his knee. He would later be on the sideline in a knee brace and crutches. Again, not sure we'll see him next week against against Florida. Could be even longer, hopefully not. Look at the defense now getting to Nussmeier. Makai Mason with the sack. It leads to another field goal, but Tech's not done. They finally find some offense. Blake Baker to Devin Candy all alone. 33 yards for the touchdown, 13 plays, 74 yards, and Louisiana Tech is on the scoreboard. The Regal Blues celebrating. LSU would add a field goal, but what a great effort by Louisiana Tech on the road. 23-7 is the final. The Bulldog defense, 3 sacks on Nussmeier, 8 tackles for loss against LSU. Next game for Louisiana Tech against New Mexico State next week. Meanwhile, Florida comes to town to face LSU in Tiger Stadium. Afterwards, as you would expect, a little different reaction from the 2 head coaches.
We're happy with the win. We're not happy with the production across the board. We got to coach better. That's the bottom line. And tonight we didn't coach well enough. We got out-coached in a lot of areas. Hats off to Coach Cumbie and his staff at La Tech. They did a great job. You know, players got to make plays. Coaches got to coach better. You can tell by my voice I'm not happy with the performance, but it's a win.
I think defensively, was really proud of how our kids played. I think that, they had to earn everything up and down the field. And to be honest, when you have the ball on the 2-yard line and you're an SEC offense and you kick a field goal at the end of the game, I think it's kind of a tip of a cap from the standpoint of what they think of our defense. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my thought process on it. I think that our guys played really well on defense. Not only is it a first-round quarterback, maybe the first pick of the draft, they've got some really fast receivers as well, and I was really proud of how our guys covered and how they were, there was not a walk-off. There wasn't, you looked out there and there wasn't a lot of separation of man coverage between their receivers and our defensive back.
They know what happened out there. We didn't coach well enough and we didn't play well enough tonight. And that's not our standard. And so they're disappointed in that they didn't live up to that standard. They want to. They want to do it. They just didn't do it tonight. And so we got to go back and figure out what was in our preparation, what was in our mindset when we took the field for this game that we couldn't live up to that standard. And that's what they're trying to figure out right now. They're trying to figure, look, we knew this. We talked about it. We knew exactly what was going to happen, and it still happened to us.
Close your eyes, listen to those 2 coaches, and you tell me who won this ball game last night. Here's the breakdown of the total yards. Louisiana Tech's offense struggled, just 154 total yards, but you heard Sonny Cumbie complimenting his defense and the way they played against LSU's offense that looked so strong and consistent against Clemson, even though they didn't score a lot of points. But Louisiana Tech's defense gave LSU fits Saturday night. LSU had the ball for almost 37 minutes, yet it was a 23-7 score as Louisiana Tech suffers its first loss and LSU goes to 2-0. Now, upcoming for these 2 teams. Let's focus on LSU first. As we mentioned, you had Louisiana Tech here. You get the win sandwiched between Clemson and Florida. Florida's definitely going to drop because they lost at home on Saturday, but they come to Baton Rouge angry. Then Southeastern Louisiana and the Lions make the trip over before LSU finishes on the road at Ole Miss. That is how they will close out the month of September before they hit the first bye week of the season. As for Louisiana Tech, they opened at home with that win over the Lions from Southeastern. The loss last night in Baton Rouge. Next week, New Mexico State in Ruston, and then they'll be playing Southern Miss and then at UTEP. So, again, another road trip with 2 home games for Tech before they hit the bye week on October 4th as well. See if they can fix some things on the offense there for Louisiana Tech, but the defense certainly played a strong game against LSU Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. From one team on the road on the I-20 route to another, UL-Monroe, Bryant Vincent, the Warhawks, they were in Tuscaloosa facing an Alabama team that lost 1 week ago at Florida State. They were not happy, and they started establishing the running game early. Kevin Riley, 22 yards up the middle for Alabama. Then Ty Simpson, a little pitch and catch here. Jeremy Bernard, he takes it in. Nobody near him. 29 yards with a touchdown. It's 7-0 Alabama. Later in the first, Simpson again to Bernard. The quick pitch here, but he does all the work. Scoots one way, hits the brakes, come all the way back the other direction on the left side, have some zigzagging. 14-0 Alabama. We're still in the first. The punt by Ryan McKenzie. Now watch Cole Adams on the return, but watch Cole Adams get tackled by Ryan McKenzie, the punter. Watch it again. It is a one-arm clothesline. Don't mess with the Warhawk punter if you think you're running it back. Not in my house. Beautiful tackle. Unfortunately, it was a great gain on the return, and Alabama takes advantage. Richard Young, 3 yards on the touchdown, 21-0. Early second quarter, Ty Simpson this time is going to keep it. It's an 8-yard touchdown for Simpson, 28-0 at this point for Alabama. You get the feeling of how this one was going to turn out, and it was not pretty. 73-0, Alabama gets past the Warhawks. We heard from Brian Vincent. He said, hey, we're not going to be scared. We're going to compete. It was a rough afternoon for the Warhawks. The Crimson Tide scored on all 11 offensive possessions, 10 touchdowns, and 1 field goal. Ty Simpson sets a school record for Alabama, 17 for 17, 226 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Next up for the Warhawks from UL-Monroe, well, they get a week off to clean up some things and work on some things. They'll be back in action September 20th when they travel to El Paso to take on UTEP. Let's get a local perspective now on the Warhawks from UL-Monroe. Tough afternoon in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. We'll talk about them, and we'll get back to Louisiana Tech in just a moment. Let's say hello to our friend from KNOE up there in Monroe, Aaron Dietrich. 26 football season up there in Monroe, somebody I've worked with for a long time. Aaron, it's great to see you on this Sunday here on Game Notes. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll get back to Louisiana Tech in a moment, but let's first start with the team that's right there in your city. A rough outing. I know Brian Vincent didn't have a post-game press conference. He wanted them to go to compete against Alabama. He got a very angry Crimson Tide team. What were your thoughts on what happened yesterday in Tuscaloosa?
Just a brutal afternoon. The sun did come up here in the Twin Cities, but man, you know, they looked at this game and they thought this was an opportunity, of course, and they kept bringing it up back to 2007. They looked at this ULM team coming after a lackluster performance versus St. Francis. Warhawk fans were hopeful that they'd have a nice showing down in Alabama. They certainly did not. This was ugly. In fact, it's one of the worst losses in the school's history, if not the worst, by losing 73-0. This poses more questions now as they go into next week because they'll have the week off. They'll try to lick their wounds and then get ready for UTEP, but they got some major questions to answer over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Okay, well, I was actually going to go that way. I'm glad you said it because a lot of expectations. 5-1 last year, as we know, the best start they've had in years, and even losing the last 6 was the best record since 2019. You get the opening win on Thursday night a week ago, yet he wasn't pleased with the win, and then I guess wanted to see some steps forward. You feel like they went 2 or 3 steps backwards?
Without a doubt, especially offensively. You looked at the question marks they had versus St. Francis. He still praised, that being Coach Vincent, he praised its quarterback Aiden Armena, but this was another horrible performance offensively. And then you could always say, well, defensively, ULM pitched a shutout last week. They can ride that, the coattails of the defense from here on out. But you go out, and of course, Alabama just had their way, literally scoring on every single possession. So there are no positives to take away from this game at Alabama, besides the fact, I guess you walk out of there with a $1.9 million check.
Yeah, that could heal some wounds a little bit. It's not what you want, but you're right. That goes a long way for the athletic department. So, Aaron, in your mind then, where do you see the top 2 focal points? And I want to set this up by saying, remember last year, for fans who don't know, for Warhawks, you had an outstanding one-man wrecking crew in the running back position. He's now in Missouri at the SEC. Yeah. Against St. Francis, they did show that the running back room could be deep. In Tuscaloosa, nobody got anything done. So, in your opinion, coming off of that loss, and as you mentioned, with a week off now to kind of change some things up, what are maybe your top 2 or 3 things they need to focus on?
Yeah, first of all, better quarterback play. Going into this week, it was the number of drop passes they had last week with 8 versus St. Francis. Offensively, they got some issues. You mentioned replacing Ahmad Hardy. They got some guys back there that have some talent, and I think they'll still be fine. Offensive line obviously had major issues versus Alabama. But defensively, I would have never saw this coming, the fact that Alabama would do this to this ULM defense. I mean, it was horrible. So they got a lot of different things they got to try to fix. And this literally, Nick, I think will be the first time that Coach Vincent has been criticized. And I'm anxious to see how he handles it because, he gets off to a 5-1 start. It was a honeymoon. There was a buzz around this area. Obviously, it did not end well going 5-7, but there was still this optimistic view about Warhawk football this year that, hey, they're coming. And, last year was a building block. They're ready to take the next step. Now, did they take a step back or 2? It's going to be an interesting week, the fact that they have a bye week. And we always circled this game against UTEP, that this would be a huge game if they were going to go bowling this year. I think there's more riding on it now than ever.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Aaron. And I know I was down at Sunbelt media days down in New Orleans in July, where he was very optimistic. He liked the retention, the guys that were coming back, the experience he had coming back. Do you take away, Aaron, do you take more away from the fact that they beat St. Francis but didn't beat them probably as bad as they should have? Or do you take away more from the fact that they got blanked at Alabama, a team that lost and was embarrassed at Florida State? You know, Coach even mentioned, look, I still think this is an Alabama team that can make a run, you know, on the big scene for playoffs. What game do you take more from? Beating St. Francis but not beating them like a drum, or getting beaten like a drum at Alabama?
I think it'd probably be the second one, getting beat this bad against Alabama. You know, I looked at this team, and you go out to practice and you talk to several different people. In the 25 years I've covered UL in football, I thought athletically and just thought by the eyeball test, this was the best looking team they've ever had. And that includes the 2012 team, of course, when they pulled the upset versus Arkansas and then went bowling for the one time in the school history. But so far, 2 games in, major disappointment for UL in football. And if you're a Warhawk fan, you're hopeful this week, take the bye week, get back on track versus UTEP. Then you have this game against Arkansas State, a program you have not beat since 2009, but thankfully they're coming to your place. So you have an opportunity to get back on track with 2 wins, but they got a lot of work ahead of them.
Yep, and the stage is set. They have a week now, the bye week next week, so they have 2 weeks to get ready to try to turn things around like Aaron's mentioned. Aaron, let's go 30 minutes down the interstate to Ruston and Louisiana Tech in Baton Rouge last night. Look, this is a team that lost to LSU, but if you listen to the press conferences, you'd feel like Louisiana Tech won. They certainly played strong defensively. Offensively, Sonny Cumbie had some concerns, but what were your thoughts and your takeaways from the Bulldogs' effort in Tiger Stadium?
Well, listen, defensively, I mean, you look at them pitching a shutout last week versus Southeastern, and then you had this matchup versus LSU, and we thought, well, the Tigers will have their way. Defensively, the Bulldogs got a pretty salty unit over there. They continue to get it done. They kept the Dogs in this game. Offensively, now they have all sorts of issues. They had a lackluster performance offensively last week versus Southeastern. You look at the way it started against LSU. They finally get something going there late in the ball game. But Tony Franklin was brought in to kind of put some life into this offense under Sonny Cumbie, and so far it has been a mixed bag. Defensively, though, Luke Olson, first-year defensive coordinator, he continues to get it done. So I think they have a defense down now that can travel. Now it's whether or not offensively they can turn things around.
I'm glad you mentioned Tony Franklin's name, Aaron, because I know preseason there was a lot of excitement about him coming back in his system. What is it for Bulldog fans they should expect to see from a Tony Franklin offense? What is it that you know about his offense that you're waiting to see develop?
Well, you look at Tony Franklin's track record, and it's an exciting brand of football. You know, he's going to throw it around a little bit. His previous stint at Louisiana Tech, they lit it up back in 2012. We haven't seen that so far, and I think it boils down to the quarterback play. Tony Franklin always says he's got to have a quarterback that can run. Trey Kukok was that guy we thought. They brought him in from Saddleback. Now in, 7 quarters of action, he has not shown us that. They may have a little bit of a quarterback battle brewing here. You look, they bring in Blake Baker late in that game. He leads them on a touchdown drive. You look at the fact you still have Ethan Bullock that made 10 starts last year. So perhaps they open this quarterback battle up. It was undecided who the quarterback was going to be in terms of announcing it to the public until game day of that Southeastern game. But from practice reports, Trey Kukok was the guy all the way through training camp. Now we'll have to see where they go moving forward.
Yeah, I know it was a tough loss, but Bulldog fans, like you said, especially on the defensive end, they have a lot to be proud of for what they did. Aaron, I can't let you go without completing the I-20 route completely. Let's go 10 more minutes down the road, if you don't mind. A quick touch on Grambling. Look, we know what was going on. I loved Mickey Joseph's comment earlier in the week when he came out and said, look, we know what this game's all about. We're bringing a good band, and they did. Brought a good band up there to Columbus. But he knows it's a paycheck, and he wanted to come out healthy. But in the second year of Mickey Joseph there at Grambling, what are you seeing so far in expectations for the Tigers?
The jury's still out. And, I mean, we're going to get a better read on this team. I mean, you square up against Langston, then the following week against Ohio State. What other program in the country ever has done that? You score 60-some points versus Langston. You knew it was going to be an uphill battle versus Ohio State, and it certainly was. So you look at these 3 programs that we cover. They got outscored yesterday 170-7. We thought it was going to be a payday Saturday, but you know what it developed into? A bloody Saturday. It was brutal, to say the least. If you throw in Northwestern State and what happened to them against Minnesota, losing 66-0, you do the math, and you got to use a lot of fingers. That's 236-7 that those squads lost yesterday. Yeah. They all got paid, and they got paid well. but they're coming back with their tails between their legs.
Yeah, well, maybe that Louisiana Tech offense is looking a little better now, huh, Aaron? They saved you with that touchdown late against LSU for sure. Viewers, if you're up in the Arklatex area, that's the man you want to check out on KNOE. Aaron Dietrich, longtime anchor up there and a friend of ours. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us here on Post Game Notes, and I appreciate all your insight. Enjoy the season, and let's get together again later this year and talk some more.
Sounds good, bud. Have a great year.
Let's head 3 hours east of New Orleans, down I-10. Let's go to Mobile, South Alabama, and that is Major Applewhite, former Catholic high star in Baton Rouge. Made a name for himself as a very good coordinator, now head coach there at South Alabama. The Jaguars hosting the Wave from Tulane. It's 7-0 South Alabama. Jake Retzlaff at quarterback trying to make something happen for Tulane. Finds some room but gets popped. It's going the other direction. South Alabama with the early score and now momentum as they keep Tulane out of the end zone. And in fact, it takes just 3 plays to cover 77 yards. The majority of it right here. Bishop Davenport hits Devin Voisin 65 yards on the pass, and it's 14-0 Jaguars at home. But that woke Tulane up. Retzlaff, look at the great fake, keeps the ball, pulls it from the handoff, hits his tight end for the score. It's 14-7. After just an 11-yard punt for South Alabama, Tulane gets great field position. So Barry Mobley takes it in from 16 yards, and just like that, we're tied at 14. But Tulane's not done. 10 points in the second quarter, all by Tulane. Retzlaff on the keeper makes it 21-14. A Patrick Durkin 50-yard field goal made it 24-14. And they're not done yet. 27-17 now. We jump ahead to the fourth quarter. Look at this effort by Mobley. Bouncing off of defenders and pinballing his way to the end zone. 28 yards. It's 34-17. 33, but here comes South Alabama. 33-25, the touchdown with a minute to go. You're down 2. You got to go for 2, and they do. But Javion White gets the interception for Tulane in the end zone. That stops it. Tulane's able to run out the clock and punt it with no timeout. South Alabama can't get anything on the return, and the Green Wave go to South Alabama and get the win, 33-31 to improve to 2-0 on the season. A 27-0 run for Tulane after they trailed early in the first quarter by 14-0. How about 241 rushing yards? The Wave getting it done on the ground as they now get set to come back home for a second huge test at UL-Monroe Stadium. They've already beaten Northwestern in Game 1. Here come the Duke Blue Devils next week to New Orleans.
I'm not pleased with our play tonight. It's nice to be able to not be at our best and find a way to win on the road against a quality opponent, a program that's I got a lot of respect for, but very bothered maybe with some of the things we did tonight and didn't play at our best.
I definitely think we was ready to play. I think every week we come ready to play. I just feel like we started slow. Maybe like guys didn't get going till after they scored those 2 times. Like we needed to realize, okay, this is gonna be a game. Feel like we probably did have a big head a little bit with everybody telling us what we did last week. This week, probably some guys did feel some type of way, but after the 2 touchdowns, we definitely got rolling a little bit, but definitely not our standard.
We started off slow, honestly, in my opinion, but, once we got the ground game going, we knew we had to, just make it, make them feel us. So that's what we did.
You said Brendan was going to play, and what did he play in that one possession?
He did. I really wanted to play more, Gary. I'll be honest. My vision was to play him at least a couple drives. When things got shaky there at the end, and we weren't quite, we were up 16. If we'd have gone up 17 right there, gotten a stop, he was going back and hopefully going back to finish the game. Because what I'll tell you is Brendan, I think we're very fortunate. And I said this last week. I feel like we have 2 guys that I consider starters right now. And I really like the other 2 guys that aren't in that top 2 right now. And Caden and Donovan, they've been great. But I think we have 2 guys I would consider starters. And, when Brendan went down in training camp, he was probably just 1 notch ahead in the competition. And Jake knows that. I mean, Brendan was probably operating a little bit higher level because he's been in the system longer. And then, when he went down, Jake got a ton of reps of the ones and elevated, and, we are where we are. But I'd like to see Brendan play more because he's done some really good things. He's worked his tail off, and their teammates respect both those guys.
They got 2 different type of styles. Jake is kind of different and Brandon is different. But it could be dangerous, with the type of team that we are. So, it's definitely effective to any team that play us, with different type of quarterbacks going in, them 2.
It sure is a luxury when you have healthy quarterbacks that all can contribute, and they certainly did in getting the big road win. Again, the home win against Northwestern where Tulane dominated, challenged on the road, but they get the win at South Alabama. Now here comes a former Tulane quarterback who's now leading the Duke Blue Devils as Duke heads to New Orleans next weekend before Tulane hits the road and jumps into the SEC. Back-to-back road games, first at Ole Miss, and then they'll go to Tulsa-town to take on the Golden Hurricane. Tulane will also have a bye week on October 4th. So one more home game and 2 road games for the Green Wave before you close out the month of September. Let's take it down to Thibodaux, where Tommy Rybacki had his Nichols Colonels back at home taking on West Georgia. Rough day for the Colonels after giving such a great effort on the road 1 week ago against Troy. Davin Widener to Owen Dupree, corner of the end zone. Let's take another look at this. Watch him drag his foot. They had to think about it for a moment, but look at how close this is. But he keeps that leg in there, gets him for the touchdown, and it's 7-0. In the second quarter, Gabe Showalter with the 42-yard field goal. That made it 7-3. Nichols is right there. But last seconds of the first half, Widener to DeAndre Buchanan across the middle, literally under 10 seconds to go. It's an 18-yard score that might have been the backbreaker that made it 14-3 at the break. Nichols had just 33 yards of offense in the quarter. 17-3 now. End of the third quarter. TJ Lester bulldozes his way into the end zone. That's another score, and it's starting to get away from the Colonels. Early in the fourth, Lester again. 31-3, Tommy Rybacki telling the officials, I don't like this. Now it's 34-3, but Deuce Hogan up top. Jackson Dufresne, 44 yards as he makes the catch and drags 2 defenders in the end zone from 2 yards out. Unfortunately, not enough for the Colonels as they fall short. After that great effort on the road at Troy, they come back home and lose their second straight. 34-10 is the final score. Look at how West Georgia dominated on the ground. 342 rushing yards to just 66 for the Colonels. When you only have the ball for 21 minutes, you have to make it work. But that ground game had West Georgia with possession for almost 39 minutes of this ball game. Next up for Nichols, September 20th. They also have a bye week coming up. They'll go on the road to Texas State once they get past the bye. Now let's head over to Lafayette, where it was a very good matchup between the Cowboys from McNeese and the Raging Cajuns at Louisiana. This one played at Our Lady of Lourdes Stadium. Remember, Matt Viator, the new head coach of McNeese in his second stint there, spent some time as a consultant and coaching over in Lafayette. He was there with the Cajuns working on that program, took a year off. Now he's back on the sideline. So he knows the program well. The Cowboys coming off of a big win in the season opener. The Raging Cajuns, a disappointing 2-point loss at home to Rice. So how would this one play out? Good crowd, you know it would be. Why not? These two schools are separated by 1 hour down I-10 as the team takes the field at that beautiful new stadium they have there on campus. And away we go. First and 10 from the 46. Dylan Perry, nice nifty run, splitting defenders, gets 2 of them to fall over each other, and finally gets brought down from 28 yards from first and 10 at the 46. Sets up great field position. Bill Davis, he caps it off with a 6-yard touchdown run, and it's 7-0. Raging Cajuns. Cowboys, though, do respond. Longest play of the game here. Jake Strong across the middle. Joshua Jackson, he's off to the races. But can he outrun everybody? No. Gets it down to the 23-yard line. It's a 55-yard completion, but they're in good shape. Devin Lippold then, he comes in at quarterback. He scores it from 2 yards out, and we're tied at 7. Yet another school that's playing multiple quarterbacks, and all of them contributing. Jake Strong back in at quarterback. He wants this one back. Off his back foot, just throws it up, and it's a misplay, and it's picked off by Jalen Clark. Cajuns take advantage of the turnover. Bill Davis again, 36 yards to the outside, and you're not going to get him. He outruns him to the end zone for the touchdown, and the Cajuns now are up by a touchdown. Fourth quarter now, it's 20-10. Cowboys still in shouting distance. Daniel Beal to Landon Baptiste for the 10-yard score. Now a little breathing room for the home team as they pad the scoreboard there. Strong trying to make something happen here, buys some time, gets out of the pocket, but then loses the ball. Ashton Wright jumps on it for the Raging Cajuns, and on the very next play, Steven Blanco up the middle, and he is gone. Right side, cuts it back, gets over defender, gets into the end zone. It's a 34-yard touchdown, and 34 is where the Cajuns end on the scoreboard. 34-10 is the final. So the Cajuns get the first win of the season. The Cowboys drop their first one of the season. Davis, a huge night. 19 carries, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns to lead the way for the Raging Cajuns. For McNeese, the next game, they go back home. Weber State comes in to Lake Charles on the 13th. And as for the Raging Cajuns, they've been at home for 2. Now they're getting ready to hit the road. First stop in the SEC at Missouri.
Congrats to to Coach Dez and the Cajuns. I know this was a big game for them after last week, and congratulations. I mean, they did what they had to do to win. I thought we played really hard. I love the way we competed. I thought the competitive spirit was certainly there. We just, we made too many mistakes to beat a team like this. We certainly had our chances, I thought.
There's going to be weeks where you got to play the full 60 minutes and play really well. Yes, I'm very pleased with when they settle in and get it done, but we just got to find a way to start a little bit faster. And I don't know exactly what that is right now, but we'll talk about it and we're going to work on it. And, it kind of was this way a little bit truthfully in some of the scrimmages in fall camp. It kind of took them a little while to get their cleats in the ground and start to really play really well. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, but we're going to have to get to work and figure out a way, start a little bit faster on defense. So I think this defense has a chance to be really good this year.
So here's a look at the numbers behind the win for the Cajuns, 34-10, 400 yards of total offense for the Raging Cajuns, 238 for the Cowboys. You heard Matt Viator say he thought for a lot of parts they played pretty good. They made a few mistakes and the Cajuns took advantage of it, but a strong running game for Louisiana got the job done. You heard Coach Decimo say they need to get off to a quicker start, and they hope to do that next week when they're on the road jumping into the SEC when they visit the Missouri Tigers. Let's talk some more about the Cajuns, their win over the Cowboys, and what's expected overall in Lafayette. And to do that, let's welcome in George Faust, longtime sports anchor at KLFY, CBS in Lafayette, now doing morning as well, but still has his hands and feet all in the sports world there. George, it's great to see you here on Post Game Notes here on LPB. Let's talk a little bit about Cajuns. We want to get a little deeper into the program, but first let's talk about last night. They finally got into that win column after disappointing loss in Rice. What were your thoughts when you saw the game?
Look, I really thought the running game came out and really had a great night. Obviously, when you think of Raging Cajun running backs, you really think of usually they have a three-headed monster of some sort. This year it might be more of a two-headed monster, but that third guy is Stephen Blanco from St. Martinville High School. He's a bowling ball with wheels. So he had a touchdown score last night. Zylan Perry scored, ran for 94 yards. And then the big guy, Bill Davis, the man who's the number one for sure, had 2 touchdowns, over 130 yards rushing as well. So what stuck out to me about last night's game was a rival game. The Cajuns got up for it. McNeese was up for that one as well. But I think the Cajuns, having lost to Rice the week prior, really felt like they needed to take this game. They couldn't leave anything to chance. And that's what you saw last night with their running game, and their offensive line play was on point to be able to run the ball that well.
Yeah, you unloaded a lot right there. Let's dive in first of all with the running back situation, because yes, you have quarterback situation you're trying to work yourself through during camp, but it's nice to know that your quarterback has some friends in the backfield with 2 of them coming back. Davis was outstanding last night, over 100 yards to 2 touchdowns. He is just a bulldog type of runner that I know Decimo likes to have there in that backfield.
Absolutely, and it's if you look at kind of the recent history, that's been the case. You have Trey Regis, a guy who spent some time with the Chicago Bears. You got Eli Mitchell right now, who's playing in the NFL. So he's doing his thing. I think he just got cut from the Kansas City Chiefs, but a year ago he was backup for Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. So they have a lineage, so to speak, of creating some good running backs and some guys that can get to the league. And when you start seeing that from a player's perspective, from a high school kid who wants to be in the NFL at some point in their life, well, that does a big thing for Coach Dez and his ability to get quality running backs, and they continually kept that train rolling here in Lafayette.
George, he didn't play last night. We're going to talk about the quarterback that did, but because you're in the Lafayette market, you're right there in the middle of it. Share with us a little bit about the feeling with Walker Howard. What a comeback story to come back where he played at St. Thomas More. He earns the chance to start, and in 3.5 quarters, his season is over. How big was the deflation in Lafayette when you found out about his injury and that he was done?
We had obviously Walker Howard started the Rice game, got injured in that contest. He was a guy who was highly touted with regards to the to where he's been, and his high school career was phenomenal. Went to LSU, spent a year there, then went to Ole Miss, and came over back to the Cajuns and was able to garner the starting job. And there was a battle there. That was a competition. Coach Dez told us all summer long, he didn't name a starter till like the week before, only because there was such close competition. Daniel Beal, he's kind of had a rough go of it with regards to his opportunities in the contests, in games. He's only had a couple of appearances last night, Saturday night, in his debut as a starter. He did pretty well. I mean, you can't really fault him for his performance. He had a great running game to lean on, which is a quarterback's best friend, and so he made some great plays with regards to keeping this offense rolling. 14 to 22, 86 yards, had a touchdown. But you just like to see some improvement. I think he did a great job, and he took care of what he needed to take care of on Saturday night against McNeese.
You mentioned that Bill had some issues with confidence, but talk about what that confidence will do now, George, after last night, because the numbers weren't huge, but he got the win, which is what they needed, and get a little confidence under his belt stepping in. How big was that for him moving forward?
Absolutely. That's huge for Daniel, because what's going to happen now, you go on the road for 2 games. So you've got at Missouri, which is an SEC opponent. They're 2-0 on the year. So Missouri's going to be a tall task. You're going to get a start in an SEC stadium. You have to keep your composure. So I think being able to have that one start under his belt, kind of that game, so you're seeing the live bullets, so to speak, fly across, and the guys are coming at you full speed. So after that, you got Missouri, then you got Eastern Michigan. So you're on the road for 2 games, and I think this is a great little. It kind of introduces him to what he's going to see at maybe a bigger level at Missouri, but similar level at Eastern Michigan. The confidence level for him, though, to get a win, to lead the team to a win, is by far the most important thing that he got out of Saturday against McNeese.
So much focus on the offense because of the Walker Howard story and the lack of scoring in the first 2 games, George. But to your point, you're about to go on the road, starting in the SEC at Missouri. How important is it for the defense to travel? Because they can certainly help mask some of the shortcomings, if you will, for an offense that's still trying to find its rhythm.
Yeah, it's funny. Don't they always say the defense is always ahead of the offense when you start camp and into training camp and then into the early part of the season? I think that's the case for the Cajuns for sure. You have guys that I guess just understand what new second-year defensive coordinator Jim Salgado wants to do, and so that is really taking hold with regards to Skipper. I mean, you watch a guy like him; he's preseason all Sun Belt. He's a guy that the Cajuns lean on heavily with regards to the defensive side of the ball. So if they can continue to kind of just hold serve and give that offense a little opportunity to kind of keep on inching forward, I think the Cajuns could. I don't think they're gonna win at Missouri, but I do think Eastern Michigan is by far, and that you could put that as they're the better team heading into that game, depending on how well they play in that SEC matchup against Missouri.
And then, George, when they get done with that road gauntlet, they come back home, and you're getting ready to get into Sun Belt play. And let's remember, this is a Louisiana team picked to win the West again and have a shot to get back to the title game. Cajun fans and their expectations, do you agree with that? Is this team in a good position that after the next 2 road games, you think they can find their rhythm and be ready to move forward in the conference?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of hurdles. I think I think that's the expectation should be there. I mean, they hosted the championship game a year ago. They didn't win that one, but they got there. They won the West. I do think they're one of the top 2 teams in the West of the Sun Belt Conference. So I definitely believe that. And I think the expectation, if you're a Cajun fan, yeah, you need to think, yes, that's the expectation. That's kind of the precedent that Coach Des has set out there for everybody. Hey, we don't want to just get to championships. He said this during the offseason, during spring camp. Our goal isn't to just make it to a championship game. Our goal is to get there, win the game, and elevate this program even more. And he even put in the tail part of that soundbite. He even said, and try to get to the playoff. Getting to the playoff is actually the ultimate goal, right? I mean, if you can, but I think for a mid-major like the Cajuns, they have to win pretty much every game and lose a really close game to a bigger opponent. So we'll see if that can happen, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year, but you never know. Stranger things have happened for sure.
Sure. Well, it was a good battle Saturday night between the Cowboys and the Cajuns, separated by an hour. Beautiful new $65 million stadium there in Lafayette. So Cajun fans, get out there when the Cajuns come home. And if you need more insight, that's your guy to talk to, George Fowles. Hey, George, it's great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your insight here on Game Notes, and let's do it again later this season.
All right, sounds good. Look forward to it.
All right, let's go on the road again with the Southeastern Lions. They lost in Ruston looking for their first points of the season. They were blanked a week ago by the Bulldogs, but they're on the board here. 5 minutes into the ball game, Carson Camp to Cade Collier, 4 yards on the touchdown, 6-7. You saw him giving the 6-7 in the end zone, 7-0 Southeastern. Later in the first, Camp looking end zone, sidearm slings it. We'd like that one back. Brian Pulley gets the pickoff for Murray State. An 80-yard Murray State drive is capped off by Jordan Washington. 21 yards to the right side, he gets into the end zone. We're tied at 7. Remember, we heard Frank Selfo talking about how important it is for them to get wins like this on the road in the Missouri Valley Conference against Murray State. Well, second quarter, 12-yard touchdown. It's 14-7. Lions looking good. Now 14-10. Kyle Lowe's in at quarterback, and he can scoot. Look at him get away from the defenders, find an opening, and get into the end zone. 26 yards for the touchdown. It's 21-10 Lions. Next play from scrimmage. Jordan Washington trying to get extra yards, and he's going to get popped by Peyton Anderson. Khalid Moore is there. He picks it up, and that's a defensive score. Take another look here as Washington bounces up. He should have stayed down. He gets popped there. Moore is there for the scoop and score. 28-10 Lions at this point. It's now 31-17 Southeastern in the fourth. Lowe, again, left side on the keeper. He finds the end zone. 38-17, and the Lions get the win by the final score of 45-24. Look at the rushing yards for Southeastern between the running backs and the quarterbacks. 254 for Southeastern. The Lions scored 21 points off of 3 Murray State turnovers as Murray State falls to 0-2. And for the Lions, they're heading home for the first time this season. Next Saturday, they'll be over there at Strawberry Stadium welcoming Mississippi Valley State. Speaking of home openers, hello to Hall of Famer Pete Richardson. One of the best standing there with Baton Rouge Mayor Sid Edwards and surrounded by his national championship team out there on the bluff. The home opener for the Southern Jaguars this season as they were taking on Alabama State. Kelby Givens, we talked about what kind of a problem he is on defense. Look at the pursuit and the sack. Terrence Graves wants to see more of that. Givens responds. Once again, bull rushes his man from the left side, gets in another tackle for loss. He had 3 of those in this ball game. It's 6-0 Alabama State when Cameron McCoy is going to find Cam Jefferson, lower right of your screen, right in the corner. He gets it in for the touchdown, 7-6 Jags, up by 1. After that, though, it's all Alabama State. By the way, doesn't that new turf look fantastic out there at AOW Mumford Stadium? Marcus Harris on 3rd and 3, he gets 3, and then 44 more. It's a 47-yard touchdown, 13-7 Hornets. Now 16-7. Andrew Bodie to Ajay Harrell, 6 yards on the touchdown, makes it 23-7, and then it's Bodie again. This time, he fires a dart to Dylan Jett for 22 yards in the score. Bodie was 16 of 25, 198 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Alabama State doesn't mess around. 30-7 after they scored over 40 against UAB 1 week ago. They hang 30 on the Jags to get the win. Southern falls to 1-2. It's the 11th win all time for Alabama State over the Jaguars, who were outscored 24-7 in the second half. Next up for the Jags, a long road trip next weekend out on the West Coast. They'll be taking on Fresno State. Let's stay in the SWAC and let's head up to the Horseshoe. Number 1 Ohio State welcoming Coach Mickey Joseph and the Grambling Tigers. We heard Mickey say, hey, remember we talked about it on Game Notes. We know what this game's about. We want to play healthy. We want to play clean. Let's go take our shots. Well, Julian Sand took a shot to Will Kasmerick, 47 yards. A linebacker and a tight end is never a good matchup, and it's 7-0 Ohio State. First play of the next drive from their own 13. Julian Sand, I'm just saying, he found Jeremiah Smith for 87 yards. Quick strike, and it's 14-0 Ohio State. Just over 4 minutes to go in the quarter. Sand to Carnell Tate. 13 yards here. But let's take another look at this because watch the catch. Watch the angle of the ball. He turns all the way around, makes a beautiful catch. It's 21-0 at the end of the first for Ohio State. Second quarter, Sand to Smith again. 9 yards on the touchdown. The Tiger defense finally makes a big play, and it stopped the streak because for Julian Sand, he hasn't missed a pass yet until this one right here. gets picked off in the end zone by Tyrell Raby. Nice job on the interception. His first incompletion. That's how good he was early on. Great catch, great interception, but later in the quarter, in fact, it's almost halftime, C.J. Donaldson punches it in. 35-0 Buckeyes. Hey, we promised you. Grambling's band put on a heck of a show. Mickey Joseph said that as well. And Grambling played well, but it's way too much Ohio State. Second half, they just dominated. 70-0 is the final score as Grambling gets 166 total yards. Ohio State, 6 and a hook. 651 total yards for Ohio State's offense as Sayan completed his first 16 passes for the Buckeyes. Grambling now done with the number 1 team in the country. They come back home. It's Kentucky State Saturday night up in Grambling. We had 2 teams playing in the Big Ten, Grambling playing Ohio State, and how about Northwestern State after its first win in 2.5 years at Minnesota? First play of the game, Abram Johnston getting the start on the road, and it did not go well. He liked that one bad. Very first play, watch John Nestor as it takes Johnston just a little too long to get the ball set in his hands. He jumps the route, he takes it in, and it's 7-0 Minnesota, 6 seconds into this ball game. 6 minutes now into the quarter. Darius Taylor, 17 yards, he goes left side, gets it all the way down to the 1. Almost gets it in, but on the very next play, A.J. Turner does the honors. 7 plays, 50 yards for Minnesota, and it's 14-0 Gophers. 4 minutes later, Lameek Brockington, quick handoff here, 21-0 Gophers, takes it into the left side. A rough outing for Blaine McCorkle's Demons in the first 15 minutes. Didn't get much better in the second or the third. Drake Lindsey takes it in from 1 yard out. It's 28-0. You want to get out of this quarter in a hurry, but 40 seconds to go, and 2 plays later, Abram Johnston with the pass to Zay Davis. He gets hit, fumbles it. It's a scoop and score for Minnesota. They would go on to win it 66-0. The game called with 6 minutes to go because of lightning. It was a rough afternoon for the Demons.
Yeah, they're bigger, they're better, they're stronger than us. It's Big Ten football, right? But when you play these games, you have to be clean, and we weren't clean in the first half in those moments, and that let the game get away from us maybe a little bit more than it should. But with that being said, I am proud of our guys. I think they did show up to fight. I think they did show up and try to play hard. And I think that, success is defined as improvement. That's what we talked about in the locker room. And I think we're, even with the score today, opponent aside, we're an improved football team. Last year we played a much lesser FBS team than this and got beat a whole lot worse. And the sideline didn't feel like it did today. The energy didn't feel like it did today. We've come a long way from those things last year. And that goes back to the comment that this team right now is hard not to love. I think they're trying to figure some things out. So I am proud of them for that.
Temperatures were in the 50s in this ball game, and it was a cold day for Northwestern State's offense. The Gophers 35 points in the first quarter, the most they've scored in a quarter since 1973. Just 2 first downs and 42 total yards. You heard Coach say they were just bigger, they're stronger. It was an experience. They learned from it. They come back home for a week to work. Then they're back on the road at Cincinnati against a team from the Big 12 on the road next Saturday afternoon. But before this game and before they traveled to Minnesota, I had a chance to catch up with Coach McCorkle to talk about the direction of his program, especially coming off of its first win in 2.5 years. I know all the work that goes into it and the determination. You have been preaching about this team and your belief in this team since media days. You had a quote that we've mentioned a couple times already on our show that I love. You said, we're bringing in players here that aren't running from something, they're running to something. Can you maybe develop that a little bit and for viewers to understand what that means about the athletes you were bringing in for a team that hasn't won since 2022? Because since day one, you've been talking about the character of this team.
Yeah, well, from a high school perspective, really that doesn't apply to them as much, but we do want guys who believe in our vision and see this as an opportunity because all the high school kids we've signed in our last 2 classes have really come on blind faith and nothing else, just a belief in a vision and the message we're sharing. But that quote is directed more to the transfer kids because so many times in the portal, guys are running from something. They're running from maybe a coach that was hard on them or a failed drug test or bad academics or an off-the-field issue. What we're looking for with our portal kids are kids who are simply just running to an opportunity to play and compete at the highest level they can. And I think that's what we've been able to do with our portal kids. We haven't brought any baggage in with any of our portal kids, and that's very important, and our staff does a good job vetting those guys. And we want guys that are excited to be here, want to be here, and are thankful for the opportunity. And it's not just a place to make a quick stop and move on.
I know the portal kids, especially in this day of college football, it's a very big thing, Coach, but I also know on your roster, you are very heavy Louisiana-based athletes. Why is that so important for you to getting these Louisiana kids there in Natchitoches?
Well, why would you not? I mean, there's no better high school in America than right here in the state of Louisiana. And I don't know how many years it's been, but for years, the NFL stats that come out that, tell us that per capita, this state has more NFL players than anywhere in the country for a small state with a small population. So there's incredible talent here. And I think, too, Natchitoches is a small town. It's as Louisiana as it gets, even though we're in North Louisiana. This is a very Louisiana town. There's no doubt about it. And, when you get the local kids and grandma can come see them play, their high school buddies can come see them play, it means something to them. And they want to play hard, and they want to stay, and they want to stick it out. Where, if I'm bringing in a kid from California or New York or Michigan, why do they really want to come here? And are they going to come here to stay? So, retention is the key to all this thing. So we want to have homegrown kids that being at Northwestern State matters. They want to stick it out and see it through and get a degree and be a good teammate and be proud to be alums of Northwestern State. And I think, an older player is a better player, and that allows us to, in time, develop older players that are a little more invested. So I think it's a good recipe. And right now in our first two classes, we're 82% of our high school kids are from Louisiana, and that's more than any other Division I school in the state, and some of them by more than double.
On your personnel, quarterback Abram Johnson, quite a game. He played at Parkview Baptist here in the Baton Rouge area where we're recording from. Very selective on his passing game, Coach, but he showed his legs as well in that opening win at Alcorn State. Talk about his contributions and what you saw in the development in that game.
Yeah, he's a tough, gritty kid. He's just a great competitor. And, everybody down there in your area in Baton Rouge that kind of grew up watching him play high school football there at Parkview knows exactly what I'm talking about. This kid loves to compete. He's tough. And I got a lot of trust in him. Our team has a lot of faith in him. He does have the ability to throw the ball well. He was actually our leading rusher Thursday night against Alcorn. And as the game went on, that was definitely by design. After we had the lightning delay for a while, I didn't want to go into another one. I wanted to get the game over with. We had a lead, so we really were trying to get first downs, run the ball, eat the clock, get it over with, and go celebrate because we were not going to let that one get away from us, and we for sure didn't want another lightning delay where they may call a no contest or something like that. So that was by design as the game went on, but he is definitely a true dual threat, and he can do a lot of things for us, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow. He's still just a redshirt freshman, so He's got a lot of really good football ahead of him.
A lot of experience for him to keep moving. How about, can you think of a better start of the season for Ty Moore? He catches a touchdown, then he goes and picks up a punt, scoop and score. He's got 2 on the board. He hadn't even made it to the end of the first quarter at a halftime yet. He already has 2 under his belt.
Yeah, that's right. He's one of those kids that we were talking about that was running to something, not from something. His dad played at Northwestern State as a tight end here. His dad's Glenn Moore, who's the head softball coach at Baylor, and a lot of people down in Baton Rouge know him from his time at LSU. And then his mom is in the Hall of Fame here at Northwestern as a track athlete. So he's Northwestern State through and through, and he's one of those kids that transferred here when we came here, and he was coming to an opportunity. He's exactly what we're talking about. And to see him have some success in game one, we were really excited for him, and he loves this place, and he loves his teammates, and he's going to have a really good year. We haven't seen the last of him. He'll make a lot of plays before this year is over.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing him make some big plays for you throughout the season. Coach, before I let you go, let me just finish on this. I enjoyed watching your post-game interview. I saw the AD come up and hug you, and I saw the tears and the celebration. So as you're moving forward, you finally got that weight off your shoulders, and you've got that win. As you approach the team now, how do you continue building that confidence in them? You got a big challenge, as you mentioned, with Minnesota. Then you go Big 12. Then you start getting into South End Conference, which is no slouch, as we all know. It's an outstanding conference you play in. But now that weight is off your shoulder, does it change anything or how you talk to the guys about now carrying that level that you've reached already?
Yeah, it really does. There was so much talk here about streaks and how many days it had been and, all those things that was really a huge focus. Let's just get that first one. But now that we've got the first one, we know what it feels like. We know the expectation. We know the standard. We know how hard you have to play and how long you have to play at that level to win. Now let's build on it and keep getting better. So we're definitely not going to be satisfied with, finally just winning one game. We didn't come here to do that. We came here to do big things and push this program to be a Southland Conference contender. And we still got a long way to go before we're there. So we definitely got a lot of work to do. So I don't think anybody's going to rest on our laurels with last week's win, even though it was very satisfying. We still got a lot to do, and our guys recognize that, and they're driven to do so.
Well, we were all happy to see the celebration that you all earned for the community, the school, you, your staff, the players. And, Coach, I appreciate your time. I know it's a big week. Good luck on the road the next couple weeks, and as you jump into conference play, we'll look forward to covering you here on Game Notes, and hopefully later in the season we can catch up again. We'll talk a little more and see how things are going, if that's all right with you.
Anytime, Victor. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Coach. We certainly appreciate Coach in his time as he's getting ready to go to Minnesota. As you've mentioned, it's an experience. It was a tough loss. They'll have to learn from it. They turn back around to get ready to go to Cincinnati out of the Big 12 before they go then to Prairie View and then a bye week. So they'll get back and start conference play once they get into October. By the way, that game coming up at Cincinnati, they'll be facing a 1-1 team because Cincinnati on Saturday was 14 points better than Bowling Green to get its first win of the season. You hear him talk about the makeup of this team. We'll see if the Demons can then start a new win streak when they get back on the road. So that's a wrap-up of Week 2 for our teams here in Louisiana. A lackluster win for LSU. Great effort by Louisiana Tech on the road. A very impressive win for Tulane and for Southeastern on the road at Murray State. Let's look ahead now to what was some of the games we'll be watching in Week 3 in terms of our state teams. We just heard from Coach McCorkle, Northwestern State. They'll kick it off in the afternoon at Cincinnati out of the Big 12. Louisiana makes its first road trip of the season. They jump into the SEC. They'll be up in Columbus to take on Missouri. New Mexico State back in Ruston to take on Louisiana Tech as the Bulldogs look to build off of that loss to LSU. Speaking of, they will welcome the very angry Florida Gator team who embarrassingly lost at home Saturday night. Duke in New Orleans, Tulane, former quarterback facing his former team in the Green Wave. A primetime kick down at UL-Monroe Stadium. That should be a great atmosphere. And Southern, as we mentioned, they go out west to take on Fresno State. Nichols and UL-Monroe both having the week off as they get set to return to action on September 20th. But for that, that's going to wrap it up for here. I'm so glad you joined us here for post-game notes here on LPB. Week 2 in the books. We're ready for Week 3, and we'll see you next Saturday to get you ready for it all. Game notes at 10 a.m. Saturday morning here on LPB. For everybody with the show, I'm Victor Howell. Have a great week, everybody. Major production funding for Game Notes is provided by Southern University and A&M College, and Hargrove Engineers and Constructors, and the Romp Pew Agency, with additional support from Lafayette Travel, the LSU Alumni Association, and the Cook Hotel and Conference Center at LSU, Louisiana Tech University, Natchitoches Regional Medical Center, Northwestern State University, Red Stick Sports, the U.S. Army Baton Rouge Recruiting Battalion, the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, and viewers like you. Thank you.